Okay, yesterday we saw a unbelievable machlokes. Then, in fact, Beis Shammai argues on Beis Hillel. The first Mishnah in this epic Mishnah is that there are 15 saros, 15 ervos, that if they're married to someone and they fall to a yavam, and the yavam is an erva to one of them, then the tzara is asa to go ahead. The tzara is pata, no yibum, no chalitza, she goes free. There's no zika. Beis Shammai disagreed with that. Beis Shammai said that in fact there is a chiyuv to go ahead. Let's see Eishes Hames Hachutza the Yisar. Chutza, Mechal, there's one that's closer. The chutza is going on the girl, on the tzara, and unless there's Leisiya, she shouldn't go out. So Beis Shammai was mechadesh that in fact there is a mitzvah of yibum on the tzara b'mokem erva. That was the tremendous chiddush we saw yesterday. The Gemara said in Afkamina, the Mishnah said in Afkamina would be for chalitza. So according to Beis Shammai, if you would go ahead and do chalitza, she's a chalutza. Since there was a zika and you're supposed to marry the tzara, penina, if you do chalitza, she's a chalutza, she can't marry a kohen. Conversely, lo Beis Hillel, if you would give chalitza, it would do nothing. Why? Because in fact, she has no zika. So therefore, you go ahead and you can't. If you do chalitza, she's still mutter to a kohen because you accomplish nothing. Okay. Picking up at that point, we're going to start from Yud Gimel Amid Beis, right before it gets wide. Chalsu Beis Shammai Paisel Beis Hillel Machshirin. If you do chalitza, Beis Shammai says you pasel kahuna, you're a chalutza, and Beis Hillel says you're what? You are kasha. Pshita says the Gemara. What's the chiddush? In other words, once there's a zika, you do it your chalitza. Once there's no zika, there's nothing. So and for Gemara lafukei to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, it comes to exclude the case of Yochanan ben Nuri. The Amma was of the opinion. Bo'u v'natgu lehem l'tzaros she'echoltzos v'loy misyabmos. Kamash malon the Beis Hillel machshirin. We're going to see on tomorrow's daf, but without going into it long distance. Tomorrow's daf, the biggest way to avoid any possible future intermarriage problems. Loit Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel's, Beis Hillel, all of Beis Shammai's offspring from a tzara will be a mamzer because you had relations with an Eishasach. There's no zika. There's mamzeris. And Lot Beis Shammai, it's chayve lavim. It's a pogrom for a kohen. So to avoid all that, just give everyone chalitza. Lot Beis Shammai, it'll be you need it. Lot Beis Hillel, escape nishan doesn't make a difference, and that would go ahead and at least end problems. We don't say that. We say kamashmon that Beis Hillel says is kosher, and you don't need any chalitza. And therefore it's kosher to the kahuna. Nisyamu Beis Hillel paislin. If you do yibum, Beis Hillel says that it's pasul. Right? She's pasul. She's a zaina. Guys, she's a zaina now. Remember we spoke at snus. She's a zaina, and Beis Hillel Shammai says that she's a kasha v'yasha. Hasulamali. Why do you have to tell me this din? In other words, once you told me the din by chalitza, I can ascertain that if, according to Beis Hillel, if somebody else had relations with her, that she is a zona, that she can't marry a kohen. So why are you telling me the same halacha? In other words, you're just telling me it in another venue, but it's the same toilada. The fact that according to Beis Hillel, there is no zika. Hasulamli, I did tana chalza tani namin misyabmo. So now you told me chalitza, you told me yibam. Okay. For all intents and purposes, we got a night off from Yevamot, guys. You could rest easy. You don't have to. The red book, the infamous red book, will remain closed, close by, but closed. And we're going to have a very interesting sugya this evening, a sugya called Leisis Goidedu. If you've ever been to a minyan on Chalamoid, Sukkot or Chalamoid Pesach, you have certain places where people wear tefillin and certain people don't. So what the frum is, what do? They have a separate minyan or a separate place. They put them by the mechitza. Why is that? Because we don't want to make as if there's two Torahs. We don't want to make, look, two Jews doing yes tefillin, no tefillin. The Isser of Leisis Goidedu, Rashi says, is an Isser of, it should not seem like there are two Torahs. So we're going to segue into this. Beis Shammai says it's kasher v'yasha. Beis Hillel says it's mamzerim. We're going to segue into that. Isn't the psak of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel seem to be a creation for future problems of Leisis Goidedu? Now the pasuk, here's the pasuk. The pasuk is interesting because it doesn't speak about making different bands and making two Torahs. The pasuk says, Very interesting. The pasuk says, "Bonim atem l'Hashem Elokechem." You are bonim to Hashem. Loisis goydedu. Do not go ahead and cut yourself. It seems the goyim had the pagans. They had a way when they would hear someone die, they would go ahead. They would cut themselves. They would cut themselves, or they'd rip the hair out. That's what the term comes from. The Jews, that's asa. The Jews can't do that. That's this of loisis goydedu. Do not cut yourself. Now there's a play of words over here, and we're going to get into it. That it means two things. Not only does it mean loisis goydedu, don't cut yourself. It means loisase agudos agudos. Don't become separate bands of people. Literally, not two Torahs. And we're gonna fascinating Gemara. Okay.
Why?
So Hassan.
Any other machlokes? Why are you worried about this one more than any other machlokes?
Right. We're going to get into that. It's a good question. The Gemara is going to get into that. Very good. It says Tan Hassan. We learned over there in what we might remember. First Mishnah Megillah. We all feel good, guys. Of course, we all remember this. I know we all remember this because we all remember Beis Amid Aleph. Megillah, Nikras, the Megillah is read. The Achad Asa on the 11th of Adar, Vishnei Masa, the 12th of Adar, Ubeshleisha Asa on the 13th of Adar, Uba Asa, the 14th of Adar, Uba Chamisha Asa on the 15th. Nay, the Ara, Lepakas Loyosa, not less than 11 and not more than 15. Amalei Rish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, Ikri Khan. I'll go ahead and apply the following over here. Leisis Goidedu. What does that mean? Leisasu Agudois Agudois. Do not become what? Separate bands. Do not become separate bands. If you're going to go ahead and some land this day, someday that day, someday this day. So it's fascinating, guys, that we didn't have this dialogue in Masechta Megillah, right? But anyway, look at Rashi, guys. Leisasu Agudas Agudas is mamish parallel to where we are now. The Nero Kinoi Hagim based Tairais. It appears if you are going ahead and keeping two separate laws. When the boondocks they lay on Monday or Thursday, Vayoros Gedoylas be Yudalid on the 14th. And those that are surrounded by walls from Yeshua Binun on the 15th. So Lechora, what are you doing? You're making a scenario of Agudais being considered what? A bunch of different bands. Now, somewhere again, this is going to segue into Yevamot, but right now, that's what it's saying. That's what he says to him. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Hi loisis goidedu. This word, this lashon of loisis goidedu, mi boile legufei. We need it for the Amar Achmana, Leisasu Chabura al Meis. I need it not for this halacha of making separate groups. I need it for itself. That if someone dies, you're not permitted to cut yourself as the pagans did. Says the Gemara in Cain, if it's only coming to teach me not to cut yourself, Leimakar Lei Sigoidedu with one suf, my Siskoidedu with two suf, Shma Mina Lahachi Uda'asa. So the suf, the extra suf tells me, it teaches me that you should be agudais, and also don't cut yourself. Read the Gemara, maybe since it says the only thing it's teaching me is what? That you should make separate bands of people, but regarding the halacha of cutting yourself, it's not stating that at all. It says in Cain, if that's the only thing it's teaching me, so whatever, which way, what you could have said and what you do say, therefore we say teach me two things. Yes, Maya.
I don't understand the Sushtal to Megillah. Megillah has nothing to do with. You can't have two people in the same place doing different things. It has to do with the location where they are.
Okay, we'll see. Best Hashem, we'll see the Gemara. You're saying very good, Maya. Very good. It's good to have you and share, and you're really on your game.
Thank you.
At least someone is, because the Canadians stink.
Yeah.
So Amalei. So
you.
You're welcome. So Amalei. So Ad Kanle Shanis. Says Rabbi Yochanan to Rabbi Leish Lakish, until now you haven't learned anything. In other words, this is the first machlokis that you would go ahead and question and say loisis goidedu. I'll give you other places that you learned other things clearly where you could have said the same thing. For example, and we learned this as well. Makom shenogu lasis malacha b'arvei pesachim, in a place where they're noyig to go ahead and do malacha erev Pesach. Ad chatzos. Again, remember they used to bring the korban Pesach after chatzos. Oisin makom shenogu loisalasas ein oisin. So apparently, this problem would exist over here. A group of people working, a group of people not working. So said Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, only now by the Megillah you're waking up after the Churban Bayis when they're laying in the Megillah. Bisman Abayis by Pesach, you could have asked the same question, right? Look, this one, let's go. Why didn't you ask it then? Amalei says Reish Lakish, says Rabbi Yochanan, Aminul Chana Isura. I'm telling you Isura. The Omer of Shamin Bar Abba, Omer of Yochanan, Lekayim Esimei Apurim Bismanehem, to be Mekayim the days of Purim in their times. Zmanim Harbe Tiknu Lehem Chachamim. V'ya Amali Min Haga, and you're bringing in a minig. In other words, if you're in your Dalit, it's us to be Tesvav, and the Tesvav is us to your Dalit. So I'm bringing you a source for something that's illegal, and you're bringing me a minig. It's not asa. If this is your minig, this is your minig. This is your minig. Minig is not a stira. It doesn't appear different Torahs. Some people eat kabrok, some people don't eat kabrok. Some kohanim duchen, some kind of don't duchen. Right? That would be a bigger problem, right? That would be a bigger problem. Now, says the Gemara. Yeah, you shouldn't because it's wrong. Hasam labi surah hava. What do you mean by Pesach? It's not Isser. By Pesach, it's also Isser, right? V'tanan or v'tanya, halayla, beish shamay oisrin, ubeis hillel matirin. When you're going ahead, what? And the night of checking this chametz, Beis Shammai says it's asa to work or learn ubeis hillel matirin. So that's also. So therefore, over there as well, you could have asked that you're good if he asked as well the bedikas chametz that this one does malacha, this one doesn't do malacha, and there it's the lashon of Isser. So why did you wait till Megillah by Pesachim? You could have said the night before by bedikas chametz why some people working, some people not working. So you have machlokes there too. Amalei, so said Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan, Hasam, Haroya Omer, Malachu the less like. In other words, it would appear as if it's separate groups, guys. The one who's working has a job. The one who's not working doesn't have a job. So the fact that it's not working is not what reflective on possibly a different schism in halacha that you'll say there's two Torahs. Good. So therefore, I'm asking you from the Gila, and your question from Pesachim is Nishkan Kasha. Erev Pesach Seminig, and the night before B'dikas Chametz, what people won't go ahead and say there's two Torahs. They'll say the guy doesn't have a job. V'habeis Shammai matirin at Sarius la'achim ubeis Hillel oisrin. Beis Shammai permits the tsaris to marry the brother, and Beis Hillel doesn't. So l'chayra, it's two Torahs. What are you going to say? Says the Gemara, Amid Aleph. Says Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, Mi savris asu Beis Shammai k'divrayim. You think Beis Shammai did according to their words? Lo yasu Beis Shammai k'divrayim. He didn't do it. So he gave a psak that it's muta, but he never enacted upon it. He never physically said the brother should be miyabein v'tzara. So therefore, if they didn't act upon it, you won't concede two Torahs. It'll just be like Beis Hillel, that it's free. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan asu v'asu. Rabbi Yochanan says, in fact, they did do. Rabbi Yochanan says they did do, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan says in Taka you have a problem of what? Agudas. Like Rabbi Yochanan that Beis Shammai didn't act his psak that you can give yibum to the tzara, and now Beis Hillel says you can't. It's usher. So in fact now you do have a problem of agudas, right? You do have a problem of like kaviyachol can be two Torahs. But we looked at the Rabbi Shmuel. Mamish this machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish is machlokes the other gedolei achronim Amoraim Rav and Shmuel. The Rav Amar lo yasu Beis Shammai k'divrayim. Rav says Beis Shammai did not act according to his words. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says no. Amar asu v'yasu. Good. Now, Emas. When exactly did this occur? Now, we saw a Gemara in Erev in Daf Yud Gimel that Beis Shammai were mechaded in Tfei. They were very, very sharp. But a Baskal came out of Shemayim and said that since Beis Hillel's midas was so outstanding, the halach is like Beis Hillel. And that's what we said the other day. Beis Shammai b'makam Beis Hillel ain't a Mishnah because the fact that Beis Hillel, the Baskal said like Beis Hillel. Well, now, what is this? When exactly did Beis Shammai do according to this? L'chora depend upon before the Baskal or after the Baskal, correct? So says the Gemara the following. Emas. Ilema koydem Baskal, my time in the Madam Yasu. Why would the one say that Beis Shammai did not do it? If it was before the Baskal, there was no reason not to. The Ella must be la'acha Baskal, my time in the Madam Asu. So if that's the case, if it's after the Baskal, what's the reason for the man the Amma that Beis Shammai? How could he go against the Baskol? Meaning, it's from Shemayim. They said the halachas like Beis Hillel. So how could the Talmidim of Shammai go ahead and be miyabe mitzara if the Baskol said the halachas like Beis Hillel? So I'll give you two terutzim. I can go either way. I can answer up either way. So if it's koydem baskol, what's the reason when Mandiyama said what that you can't? We're going to Beis Hillel Ruba, and Beis Hillel is a roiv. When you have achrei rabbim, if you have rabbim, you go after the majority. So therefore, the Talmid of Shammai did not act upon it because even though we didn't have the psak from Shemayim, we didn't have the baskol from Shemayim. Nonetheless, the roiv went ahead. It was conjunction with Beis Hillel. Therefore, they did not act according to Beis Shammai. So what about the Mandiyama says they did act even before the Baskol? Beis Hillel was the roiv. When do we go after roiv? When they are equal. When they're equal, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. But Beis Shammai mechadin fei. Here, Beis Shammai is more sharper. So since he's sharper, there's a reason to go ahead and follow Beis Shammai. That's why they did it. Okay, so one teretz. That's one teretz. Okay, we have a dialogue. Machlokes Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan and Rav and Shmuel. Did in fact Beis Shammai go ahead and do what he did? So Beis Hillel clearly did, right? Beis Hillel, they clearly did what they did. Beis Shammai, one opinion did, one opinion did not. According to the opinion that they did not, it's before the Baskol. And since it's before the Baskol, and Beis Hillel was roiv. So they don't want to go against the majority. The Mandiyama said they did go against the majority. They held that that was Beis Shammai was mechaded in fei, was sharper, meaning the rayas were more clear according to Beis Shammai. That's the first opinion. A second opinion, lacha Baskol. Mandiyama lo yasu, the one who did not do like Beis Shammai, the nafka Baskol. The Baskol came out and said what? No. The Baskol came out and said no. Umanda Amma Asu, and the Mandiyama says they did do, right? That's Rabbi Shuhi. The Amma Emashkichim Baskol. We're going to have a Gemara in Azov. Hang in there with Bab Mitzia. Again, a very famous Gemara about the Tanur Achsnoi, about the oven that was what the base that got Tomei. They took out they broke it apart, put it back together again. At which point in time does it become what? A tar, says base Rabbi Eliezer. Even before you put the cement on, and they argued with him. It said they asked in Shemayim, who's the halacha like? Hashem said the halacha is like what? Like Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Shua got up and started yelling at Hashem, Torah Shemayim, and Hashem laughed. So we'll get to that as Hashem. Anyway, so that's the one. So one says that what that also so good it was a Baskol. We don't listen to a Baskol. We don't listen to a Baskol. Okay, so if you don't listen to a Baskol, okay. Anyway. Umandiyam asu, and the Mandiyama that what who says they did do, Karin and Khan loisis going to do, loisasu agudus agudus. So now we get down to what the brass tacks. Okay, we have an opinion that Beis Shammai went ahead and acted upon his psak, meaning they gave yibum to what to its soros erva. According to Beis Hillel, you didn't have to do anything. According to Beis Shammai, you needed chalitza or yibum, and they did it. Good. Why would they do it? Why aren't you making agudas two separate Torah, two separate Torahs? That's how we segue into this. On one hand, we have Tzora in Makom Beis Hillel a lot going free. Beis Shammai requiring yibum or chalitza. So aren't you making two separate Torahs? So Amar Abaya says Abaya ki amina do. When do we say do? Kigan shtei batei dinim be'ir achas. If you have two batei dinim in one city, halalu morim k'divrei Beis Shammai, halalu morim k'divrei Beis Hillel. Aval shtei batei dinim b'shtei yaros less than ba. So in other words, it seems that the din of do has everything to do with proximity to each other. If you have two batei dinim in one city, one goes this way and one goes that way, that's going to lead to mass confusion. That's going to lead to what? Where's the Torah? What's the Torah? However, if it's two batei dinim in two separate cities, after all, these are different makomos, different makom. We know one could do one thing and one could do another thing. We know that such a thing does exist. That different places. I just off the top of my head, one place that we say it's a treifa, the other place is not a treifa, right? There's different mekaymis. So anyway, so one answer to the question: when do we say leisis guy to do? That's when it's two batei dinim in one city. When don't we say leisis guy to do? It's two batei dinim in two cities. So apparently, what are we saying? Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel were in two separate cities, and that would take care of the problem of leisis guy to do. And that's what I think Meir Yamsel was discussing. Aval shtei batei dinim b'shtei yoros less than ba. Amalei Rabba says Rabba to Abaya, but Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel kishtei batei dinim b'yarachas tami. They weren't in separate cities, guys. They were arguing. If they were arguing, they were together in one place. So if they were together in one place, it's two batei dinim, one Beis Shammai, one Beis Hillel in one city. They're arguing and acting upon that on the psak. How could they act upon the psak? It's leisus guy to do. It's considered what? It's considered in one place. It's considered two separate Torahs. So therefore, Rava disagrees with Abaya. Again, what does Abaya say? Two in one is no good. 2 and 2 is good. Elama Rava ki amin leisus guy to do. Ki going bezdin be'ir achas polig plag Merin Kedivei Shammai uplag Merin Kedivei Beis Hillel. 1 and 1, and they argue. That's leisus guy to do. Aval shtei batei dinim b'ir achas less than ba. Good. So now Beis Shammai, Rava clearly disagrees with Abaya. 2 in 1, there's no problem of leisus guy to do. The guy to do is only 1 on 1. One bezdin, and it's split, and one. So in other words, initially Abaya was the most makel. Abaya said 2 separate places for sure not, right? 2 separate places for sure not, right? But 2 in 1, yes. Rava came was even more makel. What did Rava say? I feel 2 in 1 is not, because Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argue, and they're in one place, and 2 batei dinim. Where is leisus guy to do? That's 1 on 1. That's 1 on 1. So Rava was even more makel than Abaya. Tashma. Let's see. B'mekomo she'Reb Eliezer. Okay, two dinim. There's a parak in Shabbos called Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer the Mila. It's Rebbe Eliezer the Mila. We've spoken out that Rebbe Eliezer permits not only the act of Mila on Shabbos, but even the preparation for the instruments needed. So, for example, if you don't have a knife, you're able to go ahead and make a knife. You're able to cut the wood down to make the charcoal, to go ahead and make charcoal, make wood and heat to make the knife. That you could do. And everyone argues on Rebbe Eliezer. Rabbi Kiva argues on Rebbe Eliezer. In the place of Rebbe Eliezer, they did it. Guys, not only did they do it, take a look at this little Tosfos. This is fascinating. They bring themselves to this situation. They would dafka do it. It wasn't like bidi eved. Lichat chila, they would be machshir, right, on Shabbos to go ahead and do this. It's amazing. So that's ad kedei kach. So what do you see? Well, in the place of Rebbe Eliezer, they did this. Obviously, the question is leading up to leisus guy to do, right? How could you have 2 different halachas? In addition, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, in the place of Yossi Aglili, they would have chicken with milk. So Rabbi Yossi Aglili hayochlin b'sar oif b'chalav, b'sar oif b'chalav. Guys, where's the issue of basar b'chalav come from? Like savashal gali gedi b'chalev imo. Do not cook a goat in its mother's milk. Says Rabbi Yossi, the issue of basar is only an animal that has milk. Since an oaf poultry does not have milk, it doesn't fit in that category. Now we don't paskin like this, but this is the shita of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So if you want chicken parmesan, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, you would be able to indulge. In fact, in the place of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, they did serve chicken parmesan. They did. When we come into Rabbi Yossi, they would go ahead and they would eat. Says the Gemara, in the pace of Rabbi Eliezer, they permitted machshirim. In the place of Rabbi Akiva, they did not. The Tanya, Klalam Rabbi Akiva, Kol Malacha She'ef Salas Soisim Erev Shabbos, any malacha that's possible to do before Shabbos, such as making a knife, you can make that before Shabbos. And Doichenes Shabbos is not Doichenes Shabbos. Now, so L'chayra, you have a kasha. It's Leisus Goy to do. Guys, it's Leisus Goy to do. What's the answer? Different places. Says the Gemara, behind my tiyufta, what's your upslug? Mekomos Mekobosh shiny. We just gave a halacha. 2 different places is not a problem. For the Gemara, what were you thinking? Obviously, it's such an obvious answer. What were you thinking in the first place that you asked the question? Says the Gemara, Salkadei Dechamina, Yishum Chumra de Shabbos Kamakam Echadami. I would say because of the Chumra of Shabbos, we'd want one universal din. Because of the Chumra of Shabbos, you would need one universal din. Kamash Malon. What? We'll get to that. Okay. So because of this, now Hastis the kasha is only from Shabbos, not from Rabbi Yossi Glili, right? Not because of Rabbi Yossi Glili, because we're not answering up the chicken with milk. Anyway, the bottom line is it's not a Leisus Goydu problem because it's 2 separate places. Toshma continuing to try to figure out this asu v'loy asu, and as a result of asu, that's a din of what of Leisus Goydu. The Rabbi Avo ki ikla asrei the Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Avo, the great Rabbi Avo, when he come to the place of Yeshua ben Levi, having a tatul sharga, he would go ahead and carry a lamp. Now, the halacha is like this: if a lamp is lit, then everyone admits you can't go ahead and carry the lamp. It's muksamach mas isser, because right now there's a light in there. It's muksamach mas isser. Once the light goes out, then it's subject to a very famous machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Shimon regarding muktzah. Like Rabbi Yehuda, it's muktzah, you have to leave it in one place. Like Rav Shimon, it would not be muktzah, correct? We saw that in Masechta Shabbos. So now, Rabbi Avon, when he come to the place of Yeshua ben Levi, having mitatul sharga, he would carry the lamp after the light went out, because in the place of Yeshua ben Levi, they held like Rav Shimon that you don't have the far-reaching effects of muktzah. And we come to the place of Rabbi Yochanan, we'll have mitatul sharga. He would just leave it. The bottom line is, you see that we see that in one person, we see that the Leisus guy to do, because we did one thing in one place, another place. Behind my kusha, right? What's your question? We told you already, Mekom is shiny. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan Levi is one place, Rabbi Yochanan is another place. What's your question? It's the same answer. When it's 2 separate places, you don't have a problem of Leisus guy to do of becoming 2 different Torahs. Says Gemara, no hochi come in. Here's really our question. Rabbi Avo hechi ovid hocha. How could Rabbi Avo be so 2-faced? That hacha hachi v'hacha ovid hachi. There he does this thing, here he does this thing, right? You know, it's really a kasha on him. Forget we're not asking on the concept of Leisus Goydu. We're asking on this individual. Why would he go ahead one place yes, one place no? Good. Says Gemara, no. Rabbi Avo Rabbi Shua ben Levi sfila. He held like Rabbi Shua ben Levi that you could carry it. In other words, he would have carried it there also. It's not a stira in Rabbi Yochanan. It's Sheval Taisei. He said he really could have carried it, but he didn't. Why didn't he do that? The covered Rabbi Yochanan. So it's not a question on him. In Rome, do as the Romans do. So that's not pshat in Rome, do as the Romans do. It's pshat is he really held like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. And really, once the light goes out, like Rav Shimon, you can carry it. He didn't carry it by Rabbi Yochanan, not because the whole didn't carry it, because the covet of men in Rome do as the Romans do, and Rabbi Yochanan didn't carry, so the covet of Rabbi Yochanan didn't do it. Fred Gemara, you still have a problem. You have the shamis of Rabbi Avo. He's not going to notice lumdis over here that he's doing this to cover Rabbi Yochanan. He's going to see this 2-faced person. And this will lead to Leisus Goy to do, right? He's going to say, here's Rabbi Avo. Guys, Rabbi Avo is considered like one person in one place, correct? Obviously, he's one person. And he's going to see him doing diametrically opposed things. He's one person. So when you're one person, guys, there's nothing to do with Makan. So the Shamus is going to view his master, his great Rebbe. Here he carries, here he doesn't carry. That's going to lead to him to go ahead and be 2-faced. So that's a Leisus Goy to do problem. Says the Gemara, no, the Maidah lo Mishwayi. The Maidah, he tells the Shamus, no. Don't think you can't carry. Really, you could carry. The reason I'm not carrying him Rabbi Yochanan because it's covered Rabbi Yochanan, and therefore it's not going to lead to Leisus Goy to do that. He's going to think that he's 2-faced, and he goes and he's like this way and that wishy-washy. Tashma, Alpha P. Okay, now let's go outside, guys. Outside. let's carry out the psak of Reb Shimon, of Reb Beis Shammai, and the psak of Beis Hillel. So, says Beis Shammai that you have to go ahead and either do chalitza or yibum to the tzara. Let's say someone doesn't and someone marries the tzara. Good? Is it good kedushin?
Yes.
Yes. Why? Because it's a lav. It's good kedushin because it's only a lav. A child that's born is kasha? Yes. That child will be kasha. That child would not be able to, if he was a kohen, he couldn't do the avodah, he'd be a chalal, but le'inyan being nichmus lakal Hashem, to be able to marry anybody, he could. No problem. What about Reish Lakish, according to, what about Beis Hillel in Beis Shammai? Says Beis Hillel, there is no zika whatsoever to this Yevamot. In fact, this Yevamot is what we call your sister-in-law. She's Eishes Ach. If someone goes ahead, right? If you do Yibum, according to Beis Shammai, that you do Yibum, according to Beis Hillel, you know what you have? You have a mamzer. So I would think that Beis Shammai would want to stay away from Beis Shammai's case because according to him, it's mamzeris. And he would want to stay away from him because it's chai be'lavim. Let's see the Gemara. Now, Toshma, afa pi she'elu oisrim, ve'elu matirim, even though Beis Shammai says it's asa, the Yevamot, to the street, and Beis Hillel says it's mutter, that it's mutter to the street. Guys, please do me a favor, don't come here. Go back around if you want to go, okay? Thank you. Afa pi she'elu oisrim, ve'elu matirim, even though, according to Beis Shammai, this asa to go to the street. According to Beis Hillel, it's mutter to go to the street. Leinimnu Beis Shammai milisa nashim Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai did not hold back from marrying Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. Now, Bishleim, you're going to tell me that they didn't go according to Shammai. You don't have to worry about mamzeris. Mishum hachi leinimnu. Therefore, Beis Hillel did not go ahead and stop. Why? Because you don't have to worry about a person having the brother having relations because they didn't do it. If you say in fact they did do it, meaning that Beis Shammai did perform yibum, according to Beis Hillel, that performance of yibum, a brother-in-law with a sister-in-law would be a chiyav wad of chiyav karis. Why would they hold back? In other words, there's every reason in the world in Asu that Beis Hillel would not want to go ahead and have anything to do with Shammai, because according to Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai is creating mamzeris. Again, what does Beis Shammai say? You have to do yibum. What does Beis Hillel say? In that situation, you can't do yibum. It's an Yitzhak Shach. So Bishleim Beis Shammai Beis Hillel nimnu. You know why? The bnei chai ve'lavin ninu. It's chai ve'lavin. It says this sort of like siel Israel chutza. So it's a lav. But the child is kasha v'yasha. So le'inyan yuchsin, again, the only nafkamid will be le'inyan kuna. But le'inyan regular yuchsin, not a problem. El Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, amai loy nimnu. Why would Beis Hillel stay away from Beis Shammai? B'nei chave krisis mamzerim ninu. The children from that union would be mamzerim, and certainly they're not allowed to kal Hashem. Le'yovei mamzer b'kal Hashem. As I read the Gemara. So now, what are you going to say that they didn't do? So this now. Now you're going to get into Leisus going to do. V'chitema kasavi Beis Hillel. The ein mamzer mechayve krisis. Now, in this Masechta, guys, one of the things about Yevamis is not only is the Masechta of Yibam, it's the Masechta of all Arayos. All the Vayikra Yudches, which we started going through when we went through, if you remember, on the chart, in the book, he brings down the Psukim. So really, this is all Yuchsin we beginning over here, including Mamzeris. What in fact creates a Mamzer? Now, I'll give you three possibilities. One, Chayve Lavim. If a Kohen Gadol is with an Almana, if a Kohen is with a Gerusha, the child will be a Mamzer. If you hold that Kedushin is not typed by Chayve Lavim, in fact, Rabbi Kiva does hold that. No one else holds that. So no one holds that. So no union that would create a Chayve Lav would create Mamzeris. The other extreme, the only union that would create Mamzeris is Chayve Mises Bezdin, but not Chayve Karis. Or no, the middle one, Chayve Karis, we call Shkein Chayve Mises Bezdin. So the Gemara now, for a second, questions perhaps right? It goes ahead and entertains. That's the word I'm looking for. It entertains the possibility if Beis Hillel is permitting his offspring to marry the offspring of Shammai, it's because there's no mamzeris. Now, how can that be mamzeris? Because you only have whole chayve Mrs. Bezdin and not chayve krisis. The chitema you're going to say ksav Beis Hillel the ein mamzer michayve krisis, and therefore since Eishes Ach is the chi of karis, the union with a person with her brother-in-law would not create mamzeris. Even though they argue by the tsaris, only that if you come onto an erva, and that coming onto the erva would create karis. So you have a problem, guys. How in the world would Beis Hillel not refrain from intermarrying with Beis Shammai? If Beis Shammai permitted the yibum to go ahead and through, he'd have to worry about mamzeris. It must be that why clearly, unequivocally, that we didn't act upon Beis Shammai, because if not, Beis Hillel would have refrained from marrying. Again, even though they gave the psak, clearly the Brisa says they did not refrain from marrying. It must be because there was no concern. The only way there's no concern is if Beis Shammai did not enact his din of the yavam doing yibum to the Sarah. Says Masu, they did do it. They did act upon Shammai. If they act, why don't you have the concern of Beis Hillel? Says that Beis Shammai would go ahead and inform Beis Hillel. You should know this mishpach is from Mitzaris Erva. That was miyabim, and they would refrain. Let's see the Rashi, guys. Rashi, full lines up. The Maidalahu, Beis Shammai li Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai would inform Beis Hillel of what? Of this family being the product of a union of a brother-in-law and a sister-in-law. The Usha Mishpachazu Mitzaris Erva, Shenisyabma, right? Shenisyabma Bo Parshu. It came from a result of Yibum, and therefore they would stay away. It came from Yibum to stay away. For Hachanami Mistabra to say that they informed him. Hachanami Mistabra to say it informed them. Now, before we turn the page, guys, if you don't have an art scroll, okay, if you do have an art scroll, you have to go back to the Mishnah, the last din of the Mishnah on the Amid base. The last din of the Mishnah. All the Tyrus and the Tameas, that these were Matar, these were Matameh. We have two gerses. Rashi says Beis Hillel was Machmir, the Rach says Beis Shammai was Machmir. Now, could you possibly borrow a Kli with the possibility that it might be Tameh? No. And they didn't hold back from borrowing Kalim. It must be that what? That Beis Shammai, depending who you said, they informed them. So just like that case they informed, who adin the case by the tsaris of the mishpacha, they also informed. Or else it won't make any sense. So the Gemara says, Hachanami mistabra. It makes sense to say that the case of tsara, they intermarried when they were informed whether it was from a tsaris erva or not. The Tani Seifa, because the Seifa of the Mishnah brings the following case. Kol atahiris v'chol atameis, all the tyrus and all the tameis, show you elim b'tayim v'elim b'tamay. And again, according to Rashi, that Beis Shammai was matir and Beis Hillel was matama. Like nimnu, they didn't hold back oisim tahiris elu al gabe elu from making tyrus one or the other on the base. So if you're going to say they informed, they didn't hold back. They didn't inform. The Tameis the Beis Hillel, the Beis Shammai to Hairis Ninu. El Beis Hillel the Beis Shammai Lama Lo Nimdu. Hairis the Beis Shammai the Beis Hillel Tameis Ninu. Alav the Maidah Lahu Shmami. You have a good raya. Okay, you have a good raya, guys. Now, l'chayra, why did you have to come onto the raya from the case of the Kalim? You could have brought the raya from the case of the Tzara. That's even more severe, right? Says the Gemara, Ella Umay Olmei Dahach Mehach. Why was it a strong raya from the case of borrowing kalim from each other? Why wasn't it strong enough in the case of intermarrying and saying that he must have informed? I might think that the tzara, a coil goes out because it's such an odd thing, and therefore it's unnecessary to go ahead and inform Mashen Ken Kalim not Kamash Malon that what that from Kalim that they informed. Okay, Amr Balaza. Afal Shenechlu Beisham Vesila Bitzaros, even though they argue by Tzaros. Now, Gufo, we're going to go ahead and analyze this unto itself. Even though they argue by Tzaros whether you can marry the Tzara or not, Moidim, the Moida, Shei Mamzer Elamish Isuru Issa Erva. How does it flow one to the other, guys? Watch. They argue, guys, what? By Sarah, but they're Moida that a Mams is from Chayve Krisis. Like, what's the flow over here? What's the flow over here? So it seems to be that the Gemara is assuming that the case that they're arguing has something to do with a Machloikis by Tsaris Erva, and they'll be molded to the other case of other children. In other words, Saris Erva, whatever, there's a machlokes whether that's a mamzer or that's a mamzer. But they'll be moida that what? By Chayve Krisis, that's a mamzer. Again, but Loit Beis Shammai, the child is kosher v'yasha. Loit Beis Hillel, the child is a mamzer. But they're moida in a case of, for sure, Chayve Krisis, that the child is a mamzer. In other words, guys, you could be led astray. What does Beis Shammai hold about mamzeris? You don't know, because he holds that Sarah is permitted to a brother-in-law. So therefore, but he's saying, be aware that when it comes to a case of Chayve Krisus, that the Moida. Now, Man Moidim, who's Moida to who? Who's Moida to who? Elaine the Beis Shammai le Beis Hillel. If you Moida Beis Shammai to Beis Hillel, that what? That Beis Shammai says to Beis Hillel, Pshita, B'nei Chayve Lavim, K'sheirininu. The children bought from the union, if she guys, let's say that Sarah marries a person from the street, not the brother-in-law. Good? Let's say she does. There's no mamzeris there. That's a lav. So kashem ninu. So you don't need Beis Shammai to be moided to Beis Hillel in that case. That's push it. Ella must be Beis Hillel is moided to Beis Shammai. Now that makes no sense because he gufa chayve krisis he, right? The tsaris erva requires yibum, right? But that case, in other words, clearly that case what is a case of krisis. Listen to the way it reads, guys. Beis moida Beis Hillel to Beis Shammai that chayve krisis is what is karis. What is he saying? That case is a case of karis. Usually what you say is, this case is azoi, it's a maida that other case is azoi. This case is azoi. According to Beis Hillel, and everyone holds that if a man has relations with his sister-in-law, that's a chi of karis. So what does he mean? And Beis Hillel is maida to that fact. He stated that fact. He stated that fact over here. He stated it. Lo'ilam Beis Shammai le Beis Hillel. Lo'ilam Beis Shammai is to Beis Hillel. Now, what are you going to say? That Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, this Chayve Lavim is not a mamzer. Ulafuke mid Rabbi Akiva, and this would exclude the din of Rabbi Akiva. Domar yesh mamzer michayve Lavim. Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion that there's malchus by there's mamzeris b'chayve Lavim. This is Rabbi Akiva l'shita. So that kedushin is not typhus by chayve Lavim. Kamash malon they mamzer b'chayve Lavim only from a chi of kares. So again, what was the statement? The statement was that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argue, but the moida that's the chi of kares of the chi of kares by coming from mamzeris comes from a chi of kares. Says the Gemara, if it's Beis Shammai to Beis Hillel, of course, Beis Shammai says it's chayve Lavim. So the Gemara says you would have a havamina that what that Beis Shammai holds like Rabbi Akiva that even from the case of what of Yevamot Shuk was a lav that is a din of mamzeris. Kamash Malon that what? No, that not Kamash Malon only from a chayve kares is there a din of mamzeris, not from chayve Lavim, and Yevamot Shuk is chayve Lavim. Toshma. Whether it's asu or lo asu, ube achayos, and by achayos, Okay, guys, you have 4 brothers, 2 brothers married 2 sisters. Guys, you don't need the book for this. You know this case. 4 brothers, 2 brothers are married to 2 sisters. The 2 brothers that married to 2 sisters die. Now you have 2 sisters falling in front of 2 brothers. Neither one can do yibum because it's achos. They have zika from 2 of them. It's achos kukaso, right? Now, what happens if they would do yibum? Can they stay together or not? That's machlokes beis shammai beis hillel. Good. So now, they argue by tsaris whether you can marry the tsar or not. They argue by echayos whether you could stay married or not. To get yashan, if you write your wife a get and then you live with her afterwards, can the get be used in that? Shammai says yes, Beis Hillel says not. Ubesuffocates ish, a girl who can give miyun. She's suffocates ish because at any time she can go ahead and get rid of it. With Megaris says shishlei velina ima bepundik. Someone divorces his wife and they stay in the same room. We're chayish that after he divorced her, that he stayed within the same room, that he was mekadosh her again. So therefore, do they need? Did they live together? And do they need a get? Like Beis Shammai, no. Like Beis Hillel, yes. The kesef u'b'shava kesef v'pruta v'shava pruta. Beis Shammai says that adina b'shava dina, and Beis Hillel says what? Pruta shava pruta. So like Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel's people are not married. Guys, like Beis Shammai, dina is a silver coin. Pruta is a copper coin. So like Beis Shammai, the kedushin of Beis Hillel is not a good base kedushin because you didn't give enough. Okay. Nonetheless, le'nimnu Beis Shammai melisa nashim mi Beis Hillel le'Beis Hillel Beis Shammai le'namdecha to teach you the shechiba v'reyes noigim b'zeh b'zeh. That even though that in all these situations, one held it was either an Eish, not an Eish, what yes a Yevamot, not a Yevamot. All these cases, nonetheless, they said that what they intermarried and to show that the tremendous layaf for each other. Shnemar, it says emes ma'asholom ahevo. Now, Reb Shimon Omer nimnu heimin avadei. They stayed away from the vadai, meaning the case of tsoris erva they did stay away from. V'lo nimnu min asafik, but didn't stay away from what the case of get yashan or the case of what negarish and living in the pundik. That the suffix they didn't stay away from. Bishleim, you could tell me they did do it. Mishum hachi nimnu. That's why Beis Hillel stayed away from Beis Shammai, because you're worried about mamzeris. If you're going to say they did not do, if you're going to say they didn't do it, why would they hold back, guys? If Beis Shammai did not go ahead and do it and act upon his din, so why would they not act upon it? There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry about. It says in V'tizbra, Nehi Nami the Asu, very good they did do it. Bishleim Beis Hillel Nimnu Beis Shammai the Chayve Krisis Ninu. Beis Hillel would stay away from Beis Shammai since it was Chayv Karis. Umamzeirim Heim Beis Hillel. El Beis Shammai my Nimnu Beis Hillel. Why would Beis Shammai stay away from Beis Hillel? Bnei Chayve Lavim Ninu Ksherim Ninu. The children from that union are what? Are the children that were produced from a union of Chayve Lavim and they're kasha. So why would they stay away? You know, Nimnu means both ways, guys, right? Why would Beis Shammai stay away from Beis Hillel? I understand clearly why Beis Hillel would stay Beis Shammai, because like Beis Hillel, the union of its Saris Erva with Hayavam is a mamzer. But like Beis Shammai, that it's Chayve Lavim, why would he stay away? It's kasha b'yasha. After Gemara Kedom Rav Nachman Yitzchak, le'nitzcha elo l'tzara atzma, hachanami le'nitzcha elo l'tzara atzma. In other words, it's not speaking about the offspring. That they said that they stayed away is for the tzara itself. Good. So meaning Beis Shammai Beis Hillel would stay away from the right. Beis Hillel would stay away from the tzara because it's an erva, and Beis Shammai Rashi says Hadik Tani Noyim mitzara atzma uloilam Beis Shammai nami nimnoyim. He'd also stay away from marrying the Tsar Sabas without Chalitza. So it's not going on the child, it's going on what? Nimnoim, they would stay away. So Beis Hillel would stay away because it's Asur, and Beis Shammai would stay away because you need Chalitza. Now, why in the case of the Tzara did they stay away because it's Asur? Suffolk Nami Isurahu. The case of the Suffolk, the case of they stayed overnight in the inn. It's suffix whether he lived with her again for the kedushin or not, right? Why would he stay away? Nimnu says, "Loy tema min asafik ela ema min astam." They ela min astam the maidalahu parshi. In other words, if it was a case of Suffolk, if there was any problem, they would let them know. If they didn't let them know, stam, then they didn't stay away. Again, stam, without any information, they didn't stay away. Why? Because there's nothing to worry about. Whether it was they stayed together, they didn't stay together. But if there was that situation, they stayed together, they informed them. So nimnu, unless you're informed, everything is okay. Unless you're told the area is no good, the area is good. You know, it's the same thing over here. Unless you're told that they stay together and then after a gerushin, then you don't have a problem. Well, my kamashma, what's the finish that they nimnu, that they intermarried? The ava v'reyas noigim zebezeh. So hainu reisha. That's the exact same din as the reisha. They tell me that what loy nimnu. So the kamashma, the cooler Reb Shimon he. The whole Mishnah goes according. The whole Bryce is going to Reb Shimon. That the nimnu b'vadai, they stayed away from the vadi situation, and lo nimnu made suffix situation.